When the 10 plagues struck Egypt, they were not random disasters. Each one was a surgical humiliation, aimed directly at a specific Egyptian god. This was not a conflict between Moses and Pharaoh. It was a duel between the God of Israel and every deity the Egyptians worshipped. Scribe. Stephen believed Egypt was invincible. He recorded the empire's confidence, never imagining his own words would become evidence of defeat. A desert shepherd cannot intimidate the gods of Kemet. When Moses arrived at Pharaoh's court, the demand was direct.
Thus says the Lord God of Israel, let my people go.
Who is the Lord that I should obey him? I will not let Israel go.
Pharaoh dismissed the threat entirely. In his mind, the gods of Egypt were unassailable.
A desert shepherd's invisible god against all the power of Egypt. Absurd.
But the scribe did not know. The god of that shepherd was about to dismantle the greatest empire on earth, one god at a time. At dawn, Moses stretched out his staff over the Nile, and the river became blood. The water turned thick and red. Dead fish floated belly up, and the stench of rot spread across the land.
Hapi's river runs red. The god of the Nile offers only death.
Stephen rushed to his scroll, his reed pen trembling as he recorded the impossible. Hapi, the giver of life, has become a river of death. This is an omen. Across Egypt, people dug frantically along the banks, seeking water that was not poison.
If Hapi cannot stop this, what god can?
For 7 days, the Nile remained blood. Egypt's heart bled, and no god answered.
A desert shepherd's curse has wounded our empire. The impossible has begun.
Pharaoh's heart remained hard, but the first blow had landed. Hapi, god of the Nile, was publicly humiliated. Pharaoh summoned his magicians, demanding they match the sign of Moses. In secrecy, the wise men cast powders into water, and it turned to blood.
They copied the curse, but the Nile still ran crimson. What sorcery cannot undo? What is it?
The magic of the court could only add more death. It could not restore life, Stephen recorded. The sacred arts of Memphis have failed. Egypt may now be under a foreign power. After 7 days, the Lord heeded Moses' prayer, and the Nile became pure again.
The river is clean again, but my mind is not. Something has changed.
Let my people go, that they may serve me in the wilderness.
Your God restored the river, but I will not release my slaves. The gods of Egypt still stand.
Stephen wrote, Pharaoh's heart is stone. He refused the prophet, but I sense this is not over. The quiet is treacherous. The second blow came without warning. Frogs poured from the Nile and blanketed the land.
Heket's creature, but not a blessing. A curse of too much life.
Stephen wrote, Heket, the frog-headed goddess of fertility, now spawns chaos. The land is a swamp. Even the royal bedchambers were invaded. The pharaoh's own sheets crawled with damp life. In the temple of Heket, her stone image sat among the croaking horde, powerless and mocked.
First the river, now its creatures. Is this the shepherd's god attacking each of our gods in turn?
No house was spared. Frogs climbed into ovens, kneading troughs and beds. Stephen recorded, the God of the Hebrews does not merely strike, he turns our own gods against us. Pharaoh could not eat or sleep without the slick, cold press of a frog. Heket, goddess of fertility, had turned Egypt into a fetid swamp. The second god lay humiliated. The magicians of Pharaoh stretched out their rods and brought forth even more frogs, but they could not make them vanish.
Entreat your God to remove the frogs. If you do, I will release your people to sacrifice.
You set the time. I will cry out, and the frogs shall leave you alone.
But as soon as the frogs died and the land was cleansed, Pharaoh's heart turned hard again. Moses was dismissed. Stephen recorded, Pharaoh bends like a palm in the wind, only to straighten again. Relief is a drug that hardens him.
First the river, now the swamp. A pattern hides in plain sight, but my mind recoils from it.
Water to blood, frogs from the river. The Hebrew god seems to mock our deities by name. Heket's defeat is now complete. The land reeked with piles of rotting frogs, and Egypt prayed for the true God's mercy. But Pharaoh remained unmoved.
2 gods humiliated, yet our king still believes Egypt's pantheon will hold. This blindness is its own plague.
Pharaoh's defiance set the stage for the next blow, and Stephen sensed the duel was only beginning. Without waiting, Moses told Aaron to strike the dust. Immediately, gnats swarmed over man and beast. Tiny, biting insects covered every inch of skin, a torment that left no refuge.
From the very dust we walk on, Geb, the earth god, provides not soil but suffering.
The magicians tried to produce gnats with their secret arts, but they could not. The magicians themselves admitted defeat. "This is the finger of a god," they told Pharaoh. Stephen wrote, "The sacred arts of Memphis are shattered. Geb, the patron of the earth, has been defiled. The Hebrew god's reach is total." Yet Pharaoh's heart grew harder. He refused to listen, as if denial could reverse the miracle.
3 gods, Hapi, Heket, Geb, Eb, struck in its own domain. There is no randomness here.
The gnats left no corner untouched, and Egypt itched under the weight of a god they did not know. But Pharaoh, seated in his palace, chose blindness. The duel of gods had only just begun. Moses stretched out his staff, and thick swarms of flies descended on all of Egypt. The air grew dense with buzzing. Flies covered every surface, palaces, markets, and fields. But in the land of Goshen, where the Hebrews lived, not a single fly could be found.
Goshen remains untouched. This plague draws a line between us and them.
Stephen recorded, "Khepri, the scarab who rolls the sun, now rolls in filth. The distinction is undeniable. In the temple of Khepri, the sacred scarab images were blackened with crawling vermin. A god of rebirth, now a feast for decay."
Go, sacrifice to your God within the land. Do not go far.
It is not right to do so. We must go 3 days into the wilderness, as he commands.
Pharaoh's first concession had been rejected. The duel allowed no negotiation. Khepri, the 4th god of Egypt, lay humiliated, and the gulf between the nations grew ever wider. Moses cried out to the Lord, and the swarms of flies lifted from Egypt. The air cleared instantly. Not a single fly remained in all the land. The reprieve was absolute, but the heart of Pharaoh did not change.
The flies are gone, but I will not let the slaves go. This God has tested my patience, not my resolve.
Stephen returned to his scroll, ink drying as he recorded the pattern of the king's heart.
He bargains with the god of plagues as if with a common merchant. This is not diplomacy. This is blindness.
Stephen wrote, "Pharaoh concedes only long enough to breathe, then hardens like dried clay. This man would rather rule rubble than bend." In the court, officials began to murmur. The gods were failing, but no one dared speak the truth.
I am the living Horus. No desert god will humiliate me. Let the next plague come. I will not submit.
4 gods have been struck down. Yet his pride towers over every omen. If this god is real, Egypt will be shattered.
But the Hebrew God had only just begun to strip Egypt of its false confidence. The next blows would not be gentle. A deadly pestilence swept through the livestock of Egypt. Horses, donkeys, camels, cattle, and sheep all fell dead.
Not one Hebrew animal sickens. The line between us grows sharper with every blow.
But the true horror was the death of the Apis bull, the living god of Memphis. Priests gathered in despair. The sacred animal, the earthly vessel of Pa, lay dying in the dust.
A god has become a carcass. What power can the pantheon claim now?
Stephen recorded, "The gods of Egypt are dying. The Apis bull, the living incarnation, lies rotting in the temple." Pharaoh sent word to Goshen, but his heart remained stone. The death of a god could not bend him.
5 plagues, 5 gods humbled, and still he will not yield. What will it take to break Egypt?
The fields were littered with corpses, but the Hebrew cattle grazed untouched. The 5th god, Apis, lay dead, and Egypt's faith began to rot from within. Moses threw soot into the air, and festering boils broke out on man and beast throughout Egypt.
Sekhmet, goddess of healing, is silent. The air itself attacks us.
The magicians, covered in sores, could not even stand before Pharaoh.
They cannot heal themselves. Their magic is void.
Stephen wrote, "Sekhmet, who claimed dominion over disease, now watches helplessly. The Hebrew curse is supreme. Yet, Pharaoh's heart remained stone, unmoved by the suffering of his own people.
6 gods humiliated, and still he will not yield. His pride becomes a plague in itself.
The boils left no Egyptian unscathed, from slave to noble. All writhed in pain.
This god deconstructs our pantheon deliberately. He leaves no idol standing.
Sekhmet, goddess of healing, was exposed as powerless. The 6th god had fallen. Moses stretched out his staff toward heaven, and thunder, hail, and fire fell upon Egypt. The hail smote every plant. Flax was crushed, barley beaten, and fire raced along the ground.
Nut, goddess of the sky, rains death upon us. Her body is a storm of destruction.
In her temple, sacred statues collapsed under the pounding hail. Stone gods shattered like clay.
First, the river, then earth, now sky. He dismantles our pantheon domain by domain.
Yet not a single hailstone fell in Goshen. The Hebrew land remained untouched. Nut is broken. Shu, god of air, cannot shield us. The skies obey the God of Moses. Stephen wrote, "This is no natural calamity. It is a deliberate humiliation of Egypt's gods." Even among Pharaoh's servants, some now feared the word of Moses and saved their livestock. The 7th god had fallen. Stephen could no longer deny the systematic assault. Pharaoh sent for Moses and Aaron. His voice trembled with something rare, fear.
I have sinned this time. The Lord is righteous, and I and my people are wicked.
As soon as I leave the city, I will spread out my hands, and the thunder shall cease.
Moses went out to an open field and stretched his hands to the Lord. Thunder and hail stopped, but when Pharaoh saw the reprieve, he hardened his heart once more. The confession dissolved.
He begged, then rebelled. The cycle of a fool.
In the court, officials pleaded with the king, but his pride was a locked tomb. Pharaoh's confession was due at dawn, gone when the sun rose. He cannot be trusted.
He says the words, but his heart is a stone that even a shattered sky cannot crack.
The hail had ceased, but Egypt's greater storm raged on inside a hardened heart. Moses stretched out his staff, and an east wind brought locusts, a living darkness that devoured the sky. The sun was blotted out. Noon became midnight. Ra, the sun god, was eclipsed by a plague of wings. Stephen fell to his knees. The locusts descended on Egypt like a curse, aimed at heaven itself.
Ra, defeated, the eye of heaven is blind.
With trembling hand, he wrote the words that would seal Egypt's faith. Ra is dead. The locusts covered the face of the whole earth. Not a green thing remained.
The harvest is gone. The God who gives life is now a void.
Pharaoh's officials begged him, "Let the men go. Egypt is ruined."
I will let you go. But Moses, you must plead for the locusts to leave.
But even as Moses prayed, Pharaoh's heart refused complete surrender. The 8th god had fallen, but the greatest blow was yet to come. Moses prayed, and a mighty west wind swept the locusts into the sea. Not one remained, but the moment the shadow lifted and the sun returned, Pharaoh's heart petrified.
I will not let the people go.
8 blows, and he learns nothing. The cycle of a fool.
Stephen wrote openly, "This is not a series of disasters. It is a duel, one god against our pantheon." In the palace, advisors tore their robes. Panic spread like fire among the court.
I am Pharaoh. I will not bow to a slave's god.
His pride will be our grave. The Hebrews' God has already proven he can darken the sun.
Stephen's scrolls, once private, now circulated among terrified officials. The scribe had become a chronicler of Egypt's doom. The 9th plague was approaching, and everyone knew it would be worse. Moses stretched out his hand toward heaven, and a darkness fell over Egypt. A darkness so thick it could be felt. For 3 days, no one saw another. The sun did not rise. Ra, the god of light, was silenced.
This is no eclipse. The sun itself is dead.
But in the houses of the Hebrews, there was light. The line between slave and free blazed in the darkness. Stephen lit his single lamp and wrote by its trembling flame. With a shaking hand, he inscribed, "Ra is extinguished. The 9th god has fallen."
He has stripped us of the sun. What remains?
Egyptian society ground to a halt. Shops closed. Courts fell silent. Temples stood empty. The only light in the land burned in the Hebrew quarter, a silent accusation against Egypt's gods. Pharaoh remained in his dark palace, unmoved. But the 10th plague would not be dark. It would be death. After 3 days of impenetrable darkness, Pharaoh summoned Moses once more. The light returned, but his stubbornness remained.
Go, serve your God. Only let your flocks and herds stay behind.
Not a hoof shall remain. Our livestock must come with us to sacrifice to the Lord.
Pharaoh's fury erupted. He commanded Moses to leave and never return.
You have spoken rightly. I will never see your face again.
Stephen, in the silence of his chamber, heard the news. The final negotiation had collapsed. He wrote in a private scroll not meant for official record, "Who is the God of the Hebrews?"
9 plagues. 9 gods broken. What kind of being dismantles a pantheon with such precision? If this God is real, then everything we have worshipped is a lie.
The scribe set down his reed pen. Egypt was on the brink of a final, unthinkable blow. Moses stood before Pharaoh one final time and delivered the word of the Lord.
Thus says the Lord, about midnight, I will go out into the midst of Egypt, and every firstborn in the land shall die.
From the firstborn of Pharaoh to the firstborn of the lowest slave girl, judgment would fall. Stephen, in his chamber, received the news with a sinking heart. His quill scratched the papyrus as he recorded the decree. He wrote, "The Lord has set this night for the death of every firstborn in Egypt." But amidst the terror, a strange command reached his ears. The Hebrews were to slaughter a lamb and paint its blood on their doorposts. A sign, they said. Death would see the blood and pass over.
Blood on a doorpost, to defy death. What kind of God commands such a thing? And yet, after 9 plagues, can I still doubt?
Stephen did not yet act, but the question burned in his mind as the sun set on Egypt. At midnight, a great cry rose from every Egyptian household. There was not a house where someone was not dead. Stephen bolted awake, heart pounding, as wails tore the night.
The warning was true. The God of Moses has done this.
He rushed outside. Egyptian streets were filled with the sounds of mothers clutching their slain children. But when Stephen reached the Hebrew quarter, he saw blood on the doorposts, and not a single cry behind them.
Death passed over them. The blood was no mere ritual. It was a shield.
He returned to his chamber and wrote with a shaking hand, "The gods of Egypt are silent. This night they are nothing."
All our worship, our temples, our sacred bulls, they could not save a single child. We are God-forsaken.
At dawn, the magnitude of the judgment became clear. Pharaoh's own house was not spared. In the pale light of dawn, Pharaoh's voice cracked through the palace corridors, summoned Moses and Aaron. The king who had defied heaven now stood broken, his air cold in the embalmer's chamber.
Rise, go out from among my people. Take your flocks, your herds, and be gone.
Then, with a voice that had once commanded an empire, he whispered a final, unthinkable plea.
And bless me also.
Stephen received the decree. His hand trembled as he dipped the reed. He inscribed, "The God of the Hebrews has triumphed. Pharaoh has released the slaves without condition."
10 plagues, and the man who thought himself a god now begs for a blessing from the slave's God.
Across Memphis, Egyptians pressed silver and gold into the hands of departing slaves, desperate to end the curse. Stephen closed his scroll. The empire had bowed, but the true cost had only begun to unfold. At dawn, the Hebrews streamed out of Egypt, a nation of slaves, now a river of free men, women, and children, flocks of sheep, herds of cattle, and carts laden with the silver and gold of their former masters.
They leave. They are really leaving. The heart of Egypt departs with them. We are left hollow.
And ahead of the multitude, a pillar of cloud moved, a visible proof of the God who had shattered a pantheon. Stephen wrote, "They go forth, and with them, the last pretense of our gods evaporates like morning mist."
Every plague was a targeted humiliation. Now our pantheon is a graveyard.
The column stretched to the horizon, a line of liberation paid for by 10 nights of divine judgment. Egypt is stripped not of slaves, but of its soul. The gods are dead. The God of Israel is Lord. Stephen set down his reed pen. The exodus was complete. But the scribe's own reckoning had just begun. Stephen descended from his balcony and walked the silent streets of Memphis.
Ra's image, lying in splinters. The eye of heaven is shattered stone.
The great temple of Amun echoed with emptiness. Gold idols stood covered in dust.
Happy, the giver of life, now a broken face in the mud. So ends our pantheon. These ancient lies no longer deserve a place in this chamber.
One by one, the old records fed the fire. Hymns to defeated gods crackled and vanished. With a steady hand, he unrolled a fresh scroll and sharpened a new reed, account of the 10 plagues.
If our gods are truly dead, then the world must know why.
And so the scribe who once mocked the Hebrew god began the record that would outlast the empire. As dawn approached, Stephen climbed a barren hill, the completed scroll held tight against his chest.
The wilderness yawns empty now. The dust of their going still stains the air.
Below him, the silent pyramids loomed, great tombs for a dead faith.
They built mountains for gods who could not save a single child.
He unrolled the edge and read his own closing words. The God of Israel is Lord.
I mocked that name once. Now I have no other.
With slow care, he rolled the papyrus shut, sealing the witness.
This scroll will not die with me. The world must know what happened here.
The sun broke over the eastern hills, and he turned his face to the light. On a hill overlooking an empty empire, the scribe who chronicled the death of the god stood as a solitary witness, holding the truth that would outlast kings.